Yo guys, Haku here with maybe one of the longest reviews I've ever done, because I'm going to go ahead and say before I start this, I think that this may have been the worst episode of One Piece ever made. Worse than any filler I've ever seen, worse than any of the canon episodes. This may just be the worst episode of One Piece ever. And I'm going to break down why. As always, this is my review, so of course they're just my opinions from what I saw. You could love the episode, you could think it was mediocre or whatever, and either of those are perfectly fine things to think. I mean, everybody has different opinions. I just personally, upon watching it, thought that it was the worst. And one of the reasons why that I'll bring up first of all, still screens. Like, I'm not going to say half the episode, that's a big over-exaggeration, but there were so many moments throughout the episode when I was taking notes just again and again where it was just still screens, still screens, still screens. And even when it wasn't still screens, there were so many characters drawn off model, so much blocky animation, and it was just very, very bad. And I'm going to break it down in detail and go part by part. At the very beginning, there was the recap. The recap was a little long, pretty boring, nothing terrible, definitely not the worst we've gotten, not by a long shot, but it was still pretty bad. I'm not going to say that it was good in any way. We didn't even need recap given that barely anything happened last episode, and even less happened this episode. So the past 3 episodes, all 3 have been very bad. I thought that last week's episode was done pretty well though. They tried. Or maybe it was the week before last that was done well, and last week's was a bit crappy. And 2 weeks ago was the Sabo one, and that was horrible. I don't know. Don't really have my week straight anymore. But this week I can say it was even worse than the Sabo and Burgess episode. Even worse than that. I did think that the part with the Coliseum allies pushing against the birdcage was pretty nice. I liked the dialogue, liked to see a little bit more development with them, even though most of it was in canon filler. And then we get Rebecca and Viola, and they both suck. They're both terrible characters, and I'm going to say why I say that, because a lot of people do like Viola, but pretty much everyone I've seen hates Rebecca. And the reason I say that is because both of them have done very little good. They've done a lot that's kind of made things more difficult for all of the good guys, but they haven't done anything themselves that have helped the situation any. They haven't moved along the plot in any good way. Like, they're just a distraction, and they're a very annoying one. Like, you're supposed to like the characters and want to root for the good guys. And in this, I find myself rooting for Doflamingo because they've been annoying and just haven't contributed in any positive way. And the thing is, it's okay, it's good to make an annoying character when the annoying character is supposed to be annoying. They're supposed to be the bad guy. We're supposed to just feel that much more relieved when they get taken down. But Rebecca and Viola, they're supposed to be good guys. We're supposed to want them to be okay. But they're just so annoying. They're bad characters. And I don't want to just repeat myself over and over again and just hate on the episode without any reasons. But I think you can see the reasons in them not doing anything and the way they just act and them not accomplishing anything except getting caught or held hostage or needing rescue again and again, and just making it harder on all of the actual good characters. So again, with the animation, there's more still frames that come up, and what isn't still frames is almost all just choppy, low detail animation, and the only exceptions to that were whoever was animating Zoro's group was doing their job, because that group looked, I mean, not like great or anything, but far better than everything else in the episode, except for, I'll get to it later when it comes up in the episode. And also the Cavendish animation was not bad in the short, 20 seconds we got Cavendish. So the music during Gyatso's speech didn't help at all. The music was not bad, but it wasn't very fitting. It didn't really go with the speech. And like, speaking of the speech lost all of its effect on me. I didn't like, that's a speech, you read it in the manga, you feel something, it's supposed to have a feeling. You write down what he says and read it, it has feeling, but the way it was delivered, like, he'd say half a sentence, or even less than that, a few words, and then we get like 30 seconds of silence and cutting to still frame citizens, and then he'd say a couple more words, and then repeat the process. It was just so poorly paced, so chopped up, so badly delivered that it lost all of its effect. It was a good speech, but you lose all of that when you just destroy it with the pacing and delivery. Also, the way that the flashbacks were done, if they were done correctly, the flashbacks to earlier in this arc, they would have felt very impactful and they would have helped the speech a lot. But the way they just essentially played Gyatso's voice over just scenes we'd already seen, just not taken from a different angle, no filter over them, just the same scene over again that we've already seen. It just, it made it seem a lot more lazy than anything, really. It felt like a very lazy episode, really. Like, the entire episode, you can watch it, and it seems like it's just slapped together. It's probably the worst animation it's definitely the worst animation I've seen in an episode of One Piece throughout. Like, because usually even if there's bad animation, you get some good parts, and like, there was a ton of terrible animation in Fishman Island, but this was terrible animation for the entirety of the episode, essentially. There were a couple decent parts, but even then, it was not good. And again, getting into padding for time isn't bad if you pad it with interesting stuff, or you do things that are helpful, like the dialogue with the Colosseum allies. That was nice. That was the kind of padding that's sort of okay. But with a lot of this episode, you could tell that they were stalling for time. You shouldn't be able to just tell that, okay, they're stalling for time. They need to fill 30 minutes, and they're just dragging this out as much as they can. And that was very bad to be able to tell that that's what was going on. The panning shots of Dressrosa when Kabu was talking to Mancherry, those were very nice. I liked those. They were just kind of still shots that were just panned over, but they were very detailed still shots, and that was good. That was better than most of the episode. Oh man. And again, I'm sorry if you think I'm just hating on this, but it should be clear that I absolutely love One Piece, and I love a lot of episodes. It's just that, critically looking at it, if an episode is bad, I've got to say that it was just objectively very poorly made. The plot went nowhere, the animation was terrible, the sound mixing, getting into when they were chanting Lucy, Lucy, the sound mixing was horrible. It was just the same, it sounded like the same thing, like repeated over and over, obviously. But I mean, not like one person said Lucy repeatedly, like maybe they said Lucy twice, and then they just used that same clip of them saying it twice over and over again in different parts of the city, but the volume remained the same, so it didn't sound like it was coming from anywhere different. It was bad. It seemed very amateur. It seemed like something you'd see from a YouTube fan-made animation, or even worse, really. Also, Doflamingo at the end part was very off-model a lot of the time. He looked really blocky and just weird. Like, there was one I remember in particular, I think when he was about to stab Gyatso, that was very off-model, and it just looked so weird. It looked like Viola had hit him with her art fruit. That's how, like, off-model he looked. And what I thought about Rebecca, this episode in particular, is she's fan service the character. She added nothing to the story, but they made sure that all the camera angles at her were aimed at, like, her boobs or like her waist and crotch area. Like, she was fan service the character. That's all she was there for. And even the end scene that was supposed to be great and impactful was demolished by having terrible animation. it looked so blocky and choppy. All the backgrounds were just this flying screen just over and over again, so it looked like a 90s action scene with just the it looked like a bad 90s action scene with just the background flying behind them. And then even at the end, when Rebecca goes in for that final swing, she's so off model. It looks like a third grader drew it, and like her upper body is like huge, way bigger than her lower body. And another thing, this entire episode, and even that last moment, her boobs are flopping and jiggling everywhere. And I thought to myself in the entire episode, so they don't animate people's mouths moving half the time in this episode, but they do remember to animate her boobs flopping all over the place for no reason when it shouldn't even be happening. And the same thing was true with Gyatso's hair earlier in the episode. His hair was just flying around randomly, and it didn't look natural. It didn't look like wind was doing it. Nothing else was blowing. It just looked like he had like hair slithering around like Gyatso's Medusa or something. So honestly, and even when Luffy jumped in, the animation was pretty low quality. So it looked very bad. From start to finish, the animation, the sound, pretty much nothing happened in the plot. It was pretty much terrible start to finish this episode. Like, I absolutely love One Piece. And it's not like it was unbearable to watch. It's just you watch it and you see all these mistakes that you're like, if they're a legitimate professional animation company, they shouldn't have made these mistakes in a million years. They should take the time away from animating like the cube, terribly drawn Rebecca boobs flopping around and spend that extra 2 seconds animating somebody's mouth moving. Like, I don't know how a real professional animation studio put out this. And again, I've watched a lot of bad cartoon reviews, so I do know professional studios can put out some bad stuff. But this was up there. Toei should honestly be ashamed. This was the worst episode of One Piece I've seen, and I've watched the entire series probably twice. So, yeah, not good in any stretch. So, in conclusion, the sound mixing and the plot progression was pretty damn terrible. The animation was the worst I've seen in One Piece, definitely. Animation was terrible throughout. There were a couple almost redeeming moments, but not nearly enough to bring the rest of this episode up. Not at all. The music was... The songs were pretty good. It's just that they didn't really fit the actions until the one song at the end was great, and it did kind of fit... But I can't justify the entire episode because like 15-30 seconds of song fit well with what was going on in the episode. And some of the characters, Rebecca and Viola, personally were just made so unlikable, especially lately. They've been made so unlikable that you can't root for the good guys. Like, it's not good to make your characters that unlikable and annoying. It's just not. So in the end, I'm giving it two Rebecca's jiggling boobs, badly animated, out of 10. Yep, 2 out of 10. It's that bad. The worst score I've ever given anything. And honestly, I love One Piece, so I'm hoping they do better next week. I'm hoping next week is a 10 out of 10. I hope every week's a 10 out of 10, but this week was not. It was certainly not. And honestly, from the promo for next week, it's looking, I have faith that it'll be very good, but just from the promo, it was not what I was expecting. I was expecting it to look a lot better from the promo, but maybe they're misleading us, and it's going to be amazing. So, fingers crossed that it's good. I thank you guys very much for watching. Like if you did like it, and remember that we can all have our own opinions. You could have loved this episode. I just think it was terrible, personally. Subscribe for more One Piece, The Walking Dead, Tower of God, and very, very much more. So, yeah. Comment down there what you thought of the episode, what you thought of my thoughts of the episode, and follow on Twitter if you're interested in getting updates on anything like that. I thank you all so very much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out because, as you can tell, my voice is starting to wear thin. I will see you all next time.